Hey, hi everyone. This is the Organic Serendipity. It's Matéo Vigné Matsushito here broadcasting from Brussels, the heart of Brussels, from the Marolles at GIMIC Radio. We're here for the fourth episode of the first season of Organic Serendipity. Today, we're going to slide into the subtle frequencies of cultural critique in this episode called It's All About Labels. And we're joined by DJ, journalist, and sonic digger Carlos to untangle the web of labels. Those we give to music, to work, to our mental states, and to ourselves. At the end, the question is like, what do labels do for us, and what do they do to us? From genre tags to job titles, from mental health diagnosis to media framing, this episode navigates the boundaries and baggage that come with labeling. Are labels a form of clarity, or do they restrict our fluid realities? In music, why do we cling so hard to categories that can't quite capture the vibes we're hearing or the messages being pushed? Today with Carlos, we will bring a unique dual lens as both selector and storyteller, digging into the evolution of music labels, the cultural engines that can be, and the corporate cages they sometimes become. Through different kind of stories, personal reflections, sounds, this hour is a journey into what it means to name, to claim, and to sometimes just be. Whether you're someone who thrives in categories or someone who slips through them, Organic Serendipity invites you to listen beyond the label. Hi, Carlos. How are you doing today?
Hi, Matteo. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm good. I'm excited. I'm excited to start.
So today it's a bit of a special episode because in general you see our funky faces. We have a little technical problem, so you're mainly going to see the label of this episode, the artwork. But don't worry, video didn't kill radio stars, so we're here for a classic type of podcast. For those who don't know you well, Carlos, can you tell us a bit more what you do in general? Because you're not only blasting music, but you also talk about it.
Yeah, sure. I've been working in music journalism for around 10 years now. In general, I have to say I love music, man. And I love to do things with music in general. So I've worked as a journalist, as an event curator, as a DJ, as a event producer, as a bit of everything, honestly. Is just as long as I manage to stay as close as possible to my passion, that's what drives me. And yeah, so right now I'm based in Brussels and playing radio sets and club sets while still writing about music.
Can you tell us a bit more about the curation work that you did and also the medias you worked for? I think it's important also to pin a little bit more where you're from and how you managed to arrive here as well in Brussels.
Sure.
I know you a little bit. It's cheating here, but you were in Milan before. For those who don't know you, can you tell us a bit more about all this?
Sure. So everything gives late millennial a lot. I would say my strongest bound, my longest experience has been at Vice, both in Italian, in English language. I was writing about music. I was managing the Italian chapter of Noisy, that is was the musical part of Vice, RIP.
RIP.
And right now you can find me a bit around, lately on Crack magazine, on some magazines here and there, both in Belgium and in Italy, and a bit around. I was working in Milan. I was born and raised in Milan, and then I moved here for love. So I loved it here, and I think I managed to find my space here. That's not always easy, even more if you are an expat. And that's
New to the city, still a bit new to the city.
Still a bit new to the city, yeah, let's say that.
For those who don't know much about Milan, and since we're talking about labels today, can you put some simple labels for people who have never been or maybe don't know about the scene in Milan? So we have a little bit of a comparison with Brussels.
Difficult, I would say. I would go.
The label is difficult.
Difficult, yeah, complex in not necessarily in a nice way. Milan is quite an accessible city right now. It's very, how can I say, like, it's cold-hearted and capitalistic in an extreme way, but it can also be beautiful and very raw, very sincere because of that. It has a huge blue-collar worker, let's say, background, and that's amazing, and it's been suffocated more and more, but very still resistant. So it's a city of division, 100%, and the scene is representative of this, I think. Like before COVID, at least, it was busting with a lot of do-it-yourself parties, small scenes, niche inside a niche inside a niche, all in the meanwhile, like on a parallel track. There was all of the fashion parties. These words often collide, actually, because the money is there, and you don't disdain the money because with the money you can do cool stuff. So, like at the end of the day, like the two words often collide, and I have to admit there are a lot of amazing parties organized for fashion weeks, etc. It's still usually a gentrifying process that is not really sustainable on the long term. But yeah, like what I feel now, maybe it's going better, but during COVID, it was like the small scene was completely killed almost. Okay. Realities like Macau, that was probably the heart of the city for electronic music, and not only music, like it was honestly a definition of a social hub, I would say. Like it was an occupation in a huge structure, and it was amazing, and it was emptied during COVID. So now I think it's rebuilding a bit, but it's a very difficult city, very expensive, with management of the city that always think about the richest and the highest classes. I know that it's something that is probably you can say about almost any city in the world, sadly, but in Milan you really feel it.
Exactly, and it's good to stay true and repeat it day after day. It's not necessarily something that has to be forgotten, because we will leave it unfortunately still in front of us. But for those who don't know Milan, now you have a little bit of more concrete tags.
Still visit, eh? Like, it's a nice place. I didn't want
don't be too afraid,
I want to shit on my city. It's beautiful. Cool. There is a lot of cool stuff, a lot of beautiful people. Just maybe don't move there. Just visit.
You as we said at the beginning, as an introduction, you've been navigating between many words. DJ, curator, music journalist, but all those are labels at the end of the day. So first of all, the first question would be like, how do you personally relate to the word label, and what's your relationship with it?
Yeah, it's a super interesting topic, I think, because I think that labels are crucial for like human beings in general, because that's how our brain is wired, how it works. Like we need to categorize. I'm not saying it. I think there are a lot of studies on that, but like we need to categorize. We need to find, how can I say, like easy way for our brain to compute information and data and understand stuff. I also think, though, that strict labels are cages and can honestly ruin everything. And labels can be fluid. Labels can be actually freeing somehow if you don't stick to the same labels or to some boundaries that someone else has forged for these labels. So it's a bit of a mixed relationship, I would say.
It's nice to have it on one hand all squared, but at the same time it's nice if this square is not completely closed and you can somehow navigate around. That is not too rigid at the end of the day, that you feel a little bit trapped in it. By any chance, do you remember the first time that you felt boxed in a label, either in genre or in in your media work, or also on mental health, for example?
Sure. I think, I mean, I've always been quite an anxious person, and that brought me to be a bit introverted, like, I mean, almost always when I first enter a new environment. So when I was a kid, I realized that I gave this impression of a very introverted kid. I was really not. I was almost the opposite, I would say. And but at the same time, I found myself often stuck with this label of the quiet kid, the introverted kid, and a bit difficult to come out of it. So even as a kid, I was like, don't like this. I was very lucky and I was never subjected to any kind of discrimination or anything, but I still, in this small respect, like I felt the difficulties of shredding the idea that other people have about you, you know, the first idea. And a lot of time, the first impression, you get labeled, stuck with that label, and then it
stays forever.
Difficult to, yeah.
It stays forever. It's true. I had a bit the similar impression, but with like when I was writing the questions, all of a sudden I had the feeling that whenever I was associating like one type of label in my life, like whenever I felt boxed, for example, when I was working as well advice, I felt like I couldn't do anything else than this type of articles, because whenever people would approach me, they would be like, you're going to write like a Vice article, you know? And you're like, I'm super capable of doing other stuff, you know? I'm not always going to talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
I have been rejected because they were scared that my style was too Vice.
Really?
Yep.
So this kind of stuff, but I feel that it happens also in music. For instance, I was trying to think back a little bit, like how we would label things in the early 2010s, for example, or the late 2000s, and all of a sudden what I had in mind was headbangers, you know, like I felt like there was nothing else besides than this label was really like the sound of this era, but it was not, you know, it was not. There was like plenty of other stuff. Do you feel that also when you think back about like these kind of decades and stuff, you assimilate it to like one label and then the rest you forget?
Absolutely. Like even more for music, 100%. And that's again how I feel like label have to be personal or personalized at least. And the same label can mean something to you and the complete opposite to me, and that's the coolest part of it. Like they have to be instrument to make your brain work and not constriction. So yeah, absolutely. Like for me, for example, all of the years, like all of the 10s from 2010 to 2020, for me it was the deconstructed movement in general. I was not thinking of a single label, but like deconstructed movement. But then if you check it, like if you were in New York, that was something that was already happening 10 years before.
It meant something completely different.
So like in the 10s, probably they were onto something completely different for me, but that's how it works, and it's amazing, I think.
It's interesting because we have selected a couple of tracks for you today. The one that you are listening in the introduction is called Nick Molina from Jezebel. I have selected the intro and the outro song because they're both from a label that I respect a lot called BFDM, Brothers from Different Mothers. And it was based in Marseille, and it was really like how somehow I was introduced to this kind of more as you say, you know, like deconstructed music, deconstructed electronic music, where you will have both like breaks, trance, a bit of grime, a bit of techno, a bit of everything inside. And I have the feeling when I look back at this moment, like the late 2010s in Marseille, there was nothing else, you know, like in my mind, it was really like, oh, if they are throwing a party, I know I'm going to go, I know I'm going to have fun, and I know I'm going to be amazed because it's what I was looking for. Do you think that labels like this can help people access culture more easily, or at the end of the day, it flattens it because you're narrowed in one style or one artistic direction?
No, I really think not. Well, if you're talking about like recording labels, and well, okay, that really depends on the label. I think, like, because I feel like there are some labels that are actually constricting also the artistic direction of their artists, but that like on newspaper too, like majors often do that, often create this plastic sound that is then repurposed for different artists, and it's always proposed as new while it's the same thing over and over again, and they end up castrating the artistic spirit of artists. While in the underground scene, it's obviously way more often the opposite. I feel like labels are an amazing way to discover new music, being it through crate digging, being it going to parties, or being in just like scrolling Bandcamp forever. You just can manage to discover music that you would have never have discovered through the curatorship of this label. Like the idea of building a catalog that varies like through a lot of genres, a lot of artists, a lot of decades, even with the most with longevity of some of these labels. Wow, it's amazing. Like you get these catalogs again, like these folders of music that are connected somehow through some geniuses, synapses somehow.
Like
this, exactly.
It and you're like, I will never understand how they did,
but it makes sense. It works, and I'm discovering a lot of amazing shit. And it's obviously even more beautiful when you understand the meaning. You understand the fil rouge that connect all of these artists. But generally speaking, yeah, absolutely. I feel like it gives access. It's a powerful instrument, and it's never going to be outdated, I think.
Okay, lovely. So I have asked you to curate as well with me this episode. And in general, we play one track and then we talk. We play one track and then we talk. But here, to express a little bit this kind of like versatility, this kind of like double faces that some labels can have. I have asked you to bring two tracks with two tracks. So we're going to play two tracks in a row. The first one here is from Croatian Amor, and the second one will be from the Empire Line. They're both from a label that we had long conversations about, which is Posh Isolation. Why did you highlight this label? And then we're going to talk a bit more about the music after.
Yeah, you know that I'm a sucker for Posh Isolation. It was an easy choice to me. I really love this sound. I think they have a very distinctive sound, and this is something that not all labels have. It's not fundamental, I think, but when it happens, it's really nice. And I selected these tracks to highlight how like tracks from completely different genres on paper still has this common sound, this common vibe that you do understand. Like if you listen to the whole catalog of Posh Isolation, you understand the famous fil rouge, even if it's very different tracks. So you will see here, and it's
Let's listen to Croatian Amor, and the name of the track is also very cool. It's called "LA Hills Burn at the Peak of Winter." It was released in 2013.
عاشقان از دست رفتن همینو بس
down. Yeah, as you can hear, there was a bit of a radical difference between track 1 and track 2, and yet from the same label. Can you tell us a little bit more about these differences? And yet we all realize that there's some similarities as well.
Indeed. So, like, the first track from Courage and Amor was, I would say, basically an ambient track. It's not completely like weightless, but still it's very ambienty, very spacious and gentle, melancholic. So
Soft
sweet
industrial
somehow,
almost.
very sweet, very soft, very soft. The second track is basically a punch in the throat. It's fucking
It's
violence.
1312 also,
Yeah,
for those who know.
that we all stand by, stand for, stand. Yeah, so I mean,
Stands.
all cops. Okay,
Against.
but yeah. So you see, like I don't want to, in this episode, we want to deconstruct labels a bit. I don't want to use genres label too much, but you can see how they are radically different. A more ambient track and a very industrial techno four on the floor, more or less, but I still boom, 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 very heavy track with a heavy kick, with a heavy bass. Yet you can still see the connection. Like you can hear. To me, what make both of these track Porsche Isolation is somehow the raw and warm punch for the second track and melancholy for the first track, combined with this super spacious and almost cold and disconnected space where these tracks are set in. I don't know if I can explain myself, but like if you find these sounds, because some other albums are even just like guitar solos, it's just acoustic guitars,
but always with this kind of own personal space and echo that
exactly,
that
the
is
reverb
precise.
is
the reverb is amazing on both.
exactly. You get a lot of reverb, you get the right scenes for the mission, I would say, but generally speaking, like as more on an emotional side, you see this juxtaposition of like very warm and emotional sounds in two different directions, but very emotional, because one is sadness, melancholy, and the other one is rage, like it's pure rage. But both of them are set in this like cold, glacial world that you see from a distance. Like you are not really there. Like you, as a listener, are like a bit projected outside. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
true.
it. Yeah.
Almost cinematic. Like you sit in front and instead of watching, you listen, and that's it.
It is.
Also, one of the reasons why we got super hyped around showing some Porsche Isolation today is because the label stopped producing tracks this year. So it's a little bit of a homage. We pay tribute to Porsche Isolation. If you guys are listening to us right now, we're thinking about you.
We love you.
We love you. Do you sometimes some people follow labels a bit obsessively, like you would follow an artist? Is there any specific label that truly shaped your taste and your understanding of music or of a genre in general?
Yeah. I would say doing what I think were my formative years for electronic music. Pan really shaped my taste, and I think the taste of many other people, by bending genres. And I don't know, like also somehow it was something so experimental but also accessible. It was not too complex. It was always club adjacent, even if it was also often ambient publications, but still, like, you always got this vibe, this impression that you could access this content, this music, without being necessarily already, a lot into the scene.
About.
And I think Pan really changed stuff, and if they still do actually, and I think that during, between 2015 and 2018-19 were the years that I personally started DJing, started doing more music-related stuff, as we said. And it was really important to me to see this approach, like this approach of experimenting and doing
Bending the rules, going
exactly, and at the same time being acceptant, not being elitist. I really like them.
Nice. For those who don't know, go check it out. We talking about like to comment on what you were talking about. Like we see more and more lately that sets when people describe their sets, they're like, oh, it's a bit house, trap, pop, bass, jungle, grime, drum and bass all together. Do you also, like, for those who don't know you or didn't have the chance to listen to what you're doing, like in your sets, do you do this as well? You play with genre boundaries?
Well, I do, but not necessarily in a willing way. I mean, what I mean is I don't really think about it too much. I think that at the end of the day, like your job as a DJ, like if you really like what you are doing, even if you are just selecting for like a playlist even, it's to find connections, not to follow pre-existing connections, So we go back to the concept of taking labels and mixing them up, remixing them, creating new labels or using the same label for new meanings.
Not just following the thread that will lead you to something a bit like flat.
No, exactly. Don't be scared to mix stuff. And under this point of view, I don't know if she's listening to us, but a very, very, very great DJ and a friend of mine, Joanna, Miss J, she really taught me that because she really makes amazing DJ sets with a lot of different stuff in it. And she always told me, like, you don't have to care about genres. You don't have to care about, tonalities. Mm-hmm. You can, like, you have taste, that's why you are doing this thing. Like, you have this approach to music that is one of curation. So curate and trust yourself, trust your guts, and mix different stuff. So for me, for example, like when I like, if you go into my record box or Tractor, you see mainly 4 folders that are dance, not dance, 50-50, and weird stuff. Does it make sense to anyone else?
3.
No. But it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. Like, it makes sense to me, and you can find like 4 on the floor stuff in the non-dance part, and you can find ambient stuff in the dance part because it makes sense to me in my head. And I hope it then makes sense to the listener too. And so again, just like play with these labels, use them as instruments for your mind to elaborate music, but not be caged by them.
This was the advice from Carlos for those who are a bit shy at the moment of selecting the tracks for their sets. There's the only boundaries that exist is the one that you create at the end of the day. The story that you want to tell throughout the tracks that you select is as random as you. So really go for it. Maybe get inspired by people that are already doing it. So there's a little bit less of taboo around choosing so. If we dive back a little bit in the industry as a whole, and I will maybe call your hat of the music journalist here. Do you think it's resisting labels for artists nowadays? It helps or it hurts their career in 2025? Because you see more and more like. Within the scene, I have heard lots of people saying, I'm finding no one to release my track, so I don't know if I should not release it, keep it as an unreleased, or release it myself, Like, do you think that labels nowadays for artists in 2025 are helping or hurting artists?
I mean, I honestly think, as I told you, that labels still have a very important role in making different music accessible to different audiences. And for example, for me as a music journalist, labels have been fundamental to discover some of my favorite music today, because maybe it's music that I wouldn't have discovered by myself, because maybe it was produced in a country where I don't have any connection, or like maybe it was a genre that I wasn't really following at the time, and labels allows you to create these connections. At the same time, I obviously am aware of the implications that sometimes working for a label has, even more if you get to a mainstream level, obviously, where you get maybe caged in contracts or in obligations,
Release
and
date,
exactly,
going with another compilation, and stuff like that.
artistic direction that is not really adhering to your interest, to your taste. And so absolutely, I don't want to say that, like, I'm sure there are a lot of reasons to be at least a bit wary of publishing through a label. But I think that if you are lucky enough to get in contact with one of the good ones, let's say, it really can help you get to a bigger audience, but also connecting with other artists through compilations or like just even through the label itself.
Creates bridges at the end of the day.
It really creates bridges, yes.
The word label, it's interesting because I don't know how it is in Italian, but in French, like the word label, it mainly means like music label, and in English it's also like putting a tag on everything else. And talking about everything else, we see that more and more maybe the pressure of labeling yourself can affect one's mental health, either in good or bad. Did you encounter this type of pressure in your life, or when you reflect back on putting names on words or on feelings or on as we say in French, état d'âme, like how your body and your mind are connected? Did you feel that this was an extra pressure to label it, or did it take a pressure off at the end to be able to put a name?
I love it, Adam. You have to explain it to me better. No, but yes, 100%. And I can use as an example my experience in the music business. Business, sad to say, but I'm a music industry, even worse. Okay, in music, I really struggled understanding my place, as I think everyone, and even in general in the world, and more specifically in the music world, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to be, and I still don't know. And for example, like for me, just being a journalist was too passive. I wanted to be more involved in it, but I really didn't feel like an artist. I really didn't feel like I was a DJ. I really didn't feel like I was anything. And that blocked me a lot, because obviously when your mind, I mean, depends on how you are wired, obviously, but my mind was like, okay, that's a nice excuse to just not do anything. And I'm not ready for any of these roles. So I will just...
1/10 of this, 1/10 of that,
what
I'm not
what
fully
am I?
someone at the end of the day.
And then you start still doing stuff, and you think it's okay, and then you start applying maybe for jobs, because at the end of the day you need a job, and you maybe will be able to find a job in the industry, and they want to know exactly what you are. They want you to label yourself. They want you to be clear on what you can and can do, and that's absolutely normal. But at the same time, they put you again into that situation of really reducing yourself to some definition that it's not even to be like, I resist labels. It's more like that I maybe don't feel even like worth of some labels, and I don't feel like some other are enough for me. And at the same time, again, it is how it works. It is how our brain works. It is the easiest way to communicate. I really think that to avoid this, you have to be able to play with these labels a bit, you know?
It's nice to break the invisible mirror that is in front when you're like,
because
I'm
even
not just this, but at the same time I have to realize that I'm also
exactly.
a bit of
It's
this.
like I would say that like saying that I'm like a DJ or like I'm a music journalist wouldn't be right, even for all of the other stuff that I did that are small. I don't say like they're not necessarily huge things, but at the same time, like, you know, when you love something, when you are into it every day, whole day, you do a lot of stuff, and it's not just what you do, it's also your knowledge, it's also your mindset, it's what you absorb from the day that you spend just sweating on that thing. And that it's very difficult to label. So under that point of view, like I've often felt a bit constricted by this kind of necessity to labeling.
It's very interesting what you're talking about. I think it's gonna probably be very relatable for lots of people within this industry that don't really know where to fit, and at the same time they fit a bit everywhere, you know, like not everything is square, not everything is round, not everything is triangular, but at the end of the day, if you manage to create the connections that are strong enough to make it work somehow, you don't need to be labeled this or that. Without any transition, we're gonna
Nice.
we're gonna go to the other selection that Carlos has brought to us today. You're gonna have a track from Yves Tumor and from Aya. Can you tell us why? Because this is a bit different from the other selection. This is more of a compilation work, right?
It is. From both tracks are from Mono no Aware. It is an amazing compilation from 2017 from Pen. That's the main reason why I was telling you that Pen really changed a bit my way of understanding music, because with this compilation, they put together a number of amazing artists that worked a bit on the boundaries, you know, like they weren't completely labelable. They were like really like breaking these boundaries between different genres of electronic music, different genres of club music. Everything has an ambient touch, but at the same time, you can hear different influences, different genres. It's not maybe I don't know. Again, I don't want to label it as deconstructed, also because, but again, like okay,
It's a funny label.
it's too
also
much.
deconstructed.
There is a lot of. It's a lot to say. It's a lot to say. From conceptronica to deconstructed, you can like put all of these labels on stuff that really just means that there is a common concept more than a common genre. And I think this compilation had an amazing common concept that was breaking barriers, breaking boundaries, and it really managed to do so. And these two tracks, I just like them a lot. Honestly, I don't.
And if Carlos loves them, I'm pretty sure you're gonna enjoy them as well. So first one is called Limerence from Yves Tumor.
Look at the video. It's recording right now. Babe. You don't want to be on the motherfucking camera? What the fuck are you looking like that for? Baby. No, get up. Something not good. Basic. Huh? Something not good. You seen it? Say something.
we're running a little bit out of time, so we're gonna talk over music so you can hear what we're talking about at the same time. Why, like, what connects these two pieces? The second track was called Second Mask from Aya. The first track was Limerence from Yves Tumor.
I think for me, like, all of the sounds that you can hear in these tracks have been then part of what music have been in those years, you know, like that from 2015 to 2020. So all of late deconstructed scene, like, mutuated a lot, hyperpop mutuated a lot, and it was so pure, it was so the beginning of it somehow, and yeah, I really love it.
It's true that we were saying while the mics were off that you can find elements from this in, for instance, like Charlie XCX stuff or things that are way more diverse and that you wouldn't necessarily pin it to the same kind of compilation. As a journalist yourself, like, we can hear in your words that you don't necessarily like use the same type of definitions or even like labels to say than other people in general. How do you choose these words when describing a scene, an artist, or a movement?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's probably the most difficult thing that you can do because, again, like, what makes sense to you doesn't make sense to other people, and that's maybe not also what an artist would want to hear about themselves. And so what I try to do is I try to be the less caging possible, the less entrapping possible, you know? Like, I try to use the labels that are not traps, again, that are not like set in stone, that doesn't characterize an artist too much outside of their music, you know?
That are yet relatable for the reader.
Absolutely, yeah. You have to still be able to communicate with the reader without, you know, disrespecting the artist,
originality of the piece. And talking about disrespecting the artist, have you ever felt that an artist was misrepresented because of a lazy labeling? Sometimes we see like someone just being like named like pop artist, and it's like way more complex than this.
Someone was by me.
Okay, it's the mea culpa here.
Yeah. I was at the very, very, very beginning of my writing experience, and I basically depicted an artist, a producer and singer, as just a singer. I had no idea they both collaborated on the production of a track. Mm-hmm. And it was obviously quite bad. It was also a woman, so very used to this kind of misrepresentation, very used to this kind of discrimination. Honestly, I can say with my heart open that it was not sexist in any way on my side, but it was bad. I really understood. I really like felt the pain of not being able to be seen as, you know, your whole. It's not like a producer is better than a singer in any way, but still, you know, like, it's
the ranking that people imagine in their mind.
Yeah, but in general, like, you want to be seen as a whole, you know, a whole of everything that you do, everything that you are. And some labels cut this whole into slices, you know, that are often characterized by gender, by race, by a lot of things. And that's obviously diminishing. And I feel like a lot of artists are not represented as they should for these reasons too, for reasons of laziness and preconceptions.
It's very interesting because I think it happened to me as well. We like, whenever mentioning the work of an artist, just saying like, oh, this DJ, but actually it's not just a DJ, but producer, singer, text writer, and stuff like that. DJing is just what you end up seeing when you go to a party that they are playing at. So yeah, whenever you're writing, whenever you're analyzing music, whenever you're trying to understand what's around, always pay attention to how things are labeled.
You have to remember your role of a megaphone, basically. You are amplifying the artist. You don't have to be the protagonist in it. You have to amplify what's really there. And to do so, you have to be honest, you have to be clean, you have to be precise. It's very important.
Precisely. And that was the word for the end of this episode. It was Organic Serendipity episode 4. It's all about labels. Thank you very much, Carlos,
Thank
for
you.
coming here at GIMIC. It was a real pleasure. And remember, keep an open eye and an attentive ear to what's going on in the scene and around. It was Organic Serendipity. Thank you very much.